What if your crash out wasn't in vain? What if your crash out was useful? What if we all need to crash out? That's what I want to talk to you guys about today, and the value behind crying and having that emotional breakdown, that mental breakdown, and that it's not actually a sign that your life is falling apart and that everything is horrible. It's actually a sign that you might be shifting onto a better path, onto a better timeline. So let's talk about it. Hello and welcome back to the Kalopsia podcast. I'm your host, Sydney. Thank you so much for clicking on this week's episode. And today, as you could have told by the intro, I want to talk about crying, crash outs, emotional breakdowns, because I feel like we have such a bad connotation with them. And while sometimes it's valid if there's a lot of collateral damage, on the flip side, it's actually a really, really beneficial thing. Now, I want to start out by talking about crying, right? Crying is something that I always associated with sensitivity, which was inherently a negative thing. When I was younger, I would cry a lot, and I was told, Sydney, why are you crying all the time? Like, can you just like get yourself together, kind of? It's like, oh, you're just so sensitive. Like, even in school, that was always the thing. It's like, she's so sensitive. Why is she so sensitive? And so it was always a negative connotation on the action of crying. Crying to me was a sign of weakness. It was a sign of I'm not fully emotionally, formed, developed, and I don't have it on lock, right? That's how I looked at it. That's how I was taught to look at it. But now a lot of research has come out into the benefits of crying and into the necessity of crying. And one in particular was how the best female leaders are those who cry sooner, who cry more immediately after something negative happening. So what might that look like? Recently, I took a driver's test, right? I took the road test and, I first went there. It turns out that I hadn't actually scheduled a test with the DMV, which make fun of me if you'd like. I had previously done it through a different company and they signed me up at the DMV. So then I was really confused. I go, they're like, you can't take it. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I make a new test. I get there and I fail. You guys, I lost it. I completely lost it. I burst into tears. The guy was kind of rude about it, to be honest. I'm like, listen, I'm just a girl. Like, why are you talking to me like this? But he turns to me. He's like, you're going to have to retake the test. And then he's like explaining it to me, like with his like drawling voice. And I'm like, okay. And then at one point I'm like, I'm about to burst into tears. Like, this is happening. I'm like taking deep breaths. I'm like, I'm going to start crying. I'm literally going to start crying. Then like a few like tears fall down my face. I'm like, oh my God, no, now I'm crying. And my instructor's right here. And then my sponsor / teacher is sitting in the back. I'm like, how embarrassing. This is horrible. Then at one point I'm like, I actually can't. So then I like get out of the car and I'm like, excuse me, like I have to get out. I get out, I'm sobbing on the sidewalk, and my instructor's like, it's not the end of the world. I'm like, obviously, but I need to let this out. Like, I'm bursting into flames here. I am so upset, right? So then I'm able to go back into the car, grab my stuff, and I was late to work. I had to get an Uber to work. I am crying from the entire duration of me exiting that car until I get picked up by my Uber, in the Uber silently crying as well. I'm like literally inconsolable. I'm so upset. Now, my instinct was like, okay, Sydney, how can you not have your emotions on lockdown? Like, this is so bad. Like, come on, get your stuff together. Like, get together. Like, you're good. It's fine. It's not the end of the world. And, that previous day where I had gone and I hadn't actually been scheduled, my instructor was also taking this other girl to the test. And both of us, I was not able to take the test, but she also failed the test. And I think she was pretty young. I want to say she was like 18 or 19 or something like that. Like, she was young, definitely a few years younger than me. And after she failed her test, she was sitting in her seat, and number one thing you shouldn't do is comparison. And she was sitting in the front seat and she was just staring at the paper, like processing her emotions, and she like had frozen. That was her reaction, was to freeze. She was just sitting there in the car, the instructor's waiting outside the door, and she's just staring at the piece of paper and, stampless. She didn't get the approving stamp, right? Now, that was her reaction. She did not cry. She did not lose her cool. She was just like, I'm ready to retake it. I'm ready to take it again, whatever. I'm looking at myself. I'm like, I'm years older than this girl, and I am crying like a baby. But this study is actually really comforting to me, and it's really telling us that it's really important to have that emotional release, right? what happens when we cry? We release oxytocin, which actually makes us feel better. It makes us feel good. And so it's really important to let that out when you are feeling it, because it's just going to boil up and then come out later, right? And that day I was actually really proud of myself for being able to break down so catastrophically, because after that, after I had ranted to a couple of my coworkers as well, had ranted to my best friend, I was like, this happened. The next day I was like, all right, I can make terms with the fact that I failed. That's fine. Sometimes you fail and sometimes you don't. And yesterday I failed, and that's totally fine. I have processed it. I've gone through all 4 stages of grief, and here I am today, and we can try again. We can start up the process again. Yes, money was lost, and that's okay. We're going to just keep it pushing. Now, I also want to talk about the fact that the narrative that we have on crying and on emotional breakdowns is what is really disallowing the true benefits to be reaped, right? If I am to constantly think, oh, crying is this whole negative thing, it's so bad, and it's just like, it's a sign of weakness, it's a sign of emotional immaturity, it's a sign of all of these different stories that you want to apply to it, I won't reach that conclusion of thinking, well, I'm glad I got my emotions out, now I can move past it. Instead, what I'll do is I will sob and break down and be so sad, and then I'm kicking myself after that to say, why did you cry? Why did you break down? Why were you so sad? And then you're just going to keep the loop going, and then you're just going to cry because you feel bad that you cried, and then it's, oh, like you're so sensitive, and then you're upset that you're sensitive, and then it's a whole spiral, right? And I've been in that spiral several times. And this time I've decided to be unapologetically a crybaby. That's what I was. Unapologetically a crybaby. I cried several times that day. I was like, you know what? I'm upset, and I am going to feel this upset. I really am. I'm going to feel it and breathe it and live it, and I will be better tomorrow, but I need to feel it for right now. Now, something that came up to me when I went through this as well is a quote that I heard recently, and it's actually from the book Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. And this particular quote was really interesting to me, and I feel like it kind of ties into this narrative and flipping the narrative that is crying and breaking down, having emotional breakdowns and crash outs, if you will, because it really paints a better picture of the real benefits that we stand to gain from these emotional instances. So the quote goes as follows. Developmental psychologist Jean Piaget observed that in order for people to learn anything new, their old mental patterns must break up and rework itself around the new incoming knowledge. This process of internal breakdown and accommodation is key to continuing intellectual development. Likewise, Polish psychiatrist Kazimierz Dabrowski theorized that emotional distress is potentially a sign of growth, not necessarily illness. He saw psychological symptoms as coming from a freshly activated urge to grow, and coined the term positive disintegration to describe things when people break down inside in order to reorganize into more emotionally complex beings. So what is this really telling us? Not only is crying and emotional distress and crash outs and breakdowns normal and possibly a sign of noticing that things need to change, of an awareness that you might be unhappy with a particular situation, and at the bottom line, just kind of a self-assessment. But it's also a turning point. It's a turning point from the situation that you were once in into pivoting into this new situation. We often see crying and crash outs as senseless. It's almost as though we are overflowing and there's nowhere for this energy to go. So we just go crazy, we cry, we scream, we write, we tear, we crash, right? But it's something that narrative is something that is really, really disallowing us to really lean into the growth that they push us to achieve, right? If I am so upset about my driving test and I'm really crying and I'm so devastated, then I can think to myself, okay, I'm crying because I really cared. I really wanted to have this license. I really wanted to achieve this. I really wanted to prove to myself that I could do it, and I'm upset about that. But now it's like, okay, why did I fail? What made me fail? What got me here? How was I unprepared? How did I not make it work? How can I make it work next time? What can I learn from this? If I were instead to remain indifferent, remain nonchalant, think to myself, damn, like that sucks. I just failed. Okay. Next thing, maybe I'll do the test the exact same way. Maybe I'll try it and I'll kind of make an effort to change something up, and it's like I should have like passed anyway, so I'm gonna just like do it the same way again. And then maybe I don't put as much attention towards it because maybe I care a little bit less about it. Then I'm not really able to self-assess my way to such a degree that now I know exactly the ways in which I need to rework myself, the ways in which I need to pivot in order to succeed the next time that comes around. Now, to draw another example, if you are, for example, trying to get a job or trying to get into a particular school, or something doesn't work out for you, having that emotional breakdown in that moment when you feel it, not only is it going to release the oxytocin, make you feel better, but it's also you allowing yourself to have the room and to have the space of actually processing that emotion right then and there. Going back to the whole quote about how the best leaders are the ones that cry sooner, what crying does and what that self-confrontation leads to is you able to process it, compartmentalize it, and then look at the situation at hand. And so that's how it's going to really help leaders. That's how it's really going to help these people who are charged with bigger responsibilities, are charged with these bigger decisions, and are able to have that kind of balance between their emotions as well as their tasks at hand. So if you are looking to get a job, looking to get, your license, looking to get into grad school, looking to get into college, looking to move somewhere, and it doesn't work out and you are devastated and you don't allow yourself to feel that sadness, then you're not going to be able to really process the fact that you might have lost a dream. You might have had to abandon something. You might have had to abandon on a particular vision, and maybe now you have to pivot. You're not really allowing yourself to sit within that emotion. It's going to come back around. It's going to come back around, and it's going to show up in different ways in which you might have less control over. There's another book that is very known, is called The Body Keeps the Score. And the biggest lesson that I can kind of take away from that one is how important it is to confront emotions when they come up, because it'll come up in other ways, whether that be through your immune system with chronic stress, or whether that is with poor sleep, which then also has many downstream effects. The more you suppress your emotions, the more stressed your body becomes, and the more your life in general suffers. So wouldn't it be better to suffer at large at first sight, in the first instance of it, and release that part of you, release that resentment, that hatred, that sadness, that disappointment, and be able to move on and feel lighter within yourself and within your body. Now, another part of this quote that I really want to lean on is where they said, this process of an internal breakdown and accommodation is key to continuing intellectual development. It's so important to remain comfortable with that self-confrontation, with your crash outs, and not hate on yourself or be disappointed in yourself when you do have an emotional breakdown, but rather celebrate the fact that you were able to have that emotional breakdown, because it's almost like mental Olympics, right? I want to present a metaphor. Let's say that you are used to playing a certain set of keys on the piano. You play C, D, and A. I don't know. These are random letters. And you know that chord. The chord is good. It sounds good. You play those again and again and again. And, that's how you feel. Maybe these emotions are happy, sadness, and anger, or happy, excitement, and anger, whatever other emotions you want to call them. Now, what happens when a new emotion pops up? Maybe that's fear, and it's a new note, and you're like, whoa, like, what's going on? I'm not used to her. I'm not used to that one. Now, somebody comes in and crashes down and starts playing a whole new different set of chords, and it's just cacophony, and it's crazy, and it's unpredictable, and what is the piano going to do? Just break down and self-combust because new keys have been played and you don't know about them? Or are you able to find that medium within it and allow the instrument to be played in different ways? I'm not completely sure if that metaphor made sense, but what I'm trying to say here is that the larger the range of emotions you allow to pass through you, the more emotionally resilient you become. If you are unable to confront and sit with your sadness, your fear, your isolation, your disappointment, all of these different emotions, if you are unable to give yourself the room to feel and experience them, that will inherently make you less emotionally resilient, less capable of handling those emotions on your own, or even just being able to work past them without carrying the baggage within you. And this is what they're kind of saying when they say that it leads to this emotional development, this intellectual development even. And I love, love, love the term that the Polish psychiatrist brought up, which is positive disintegration. I want to present that and pitch it as a substitute for crash out. Positive disintegration, let's call it. Because what do you think of when you think crash out? Let's say that you were in a relationship and your ex is this crazy person that you have a horrible, toxic relationship with, and again, you break up, you get back together, you break up, you get back together, and maybe you're broken up again, and then they say something, and they made you a promise, and then they break that promise, and it's like, you told me that you weren't going to do this again, and then you're like, okay, I did it again, whatever, what are you going to do? Like, should we get back together again? And it's like you're in this loop and you're kind of comfortable, but it's kind of uncomfortable, but you're comfortable with this person, but they're frustrating you and they continue to frustrate you, but you've been level-headed until then. And then it's like, you know what? No, I am angry. I hate you. Get out of my life. And then you crash out. You have this huge, big breakup, emotional breakdown. I'm literally, you drive me insane, blah, blah. I'm painting the picture for you guys. This hasn't actually happened to me, but what's going to come out of that? It's a positive disintegration, because the situation that you were in was a negative one that wasn't serving you, one that was taking away from energy that you could put towards yourself, towards other things. And instead of leaning into that and staying within that comfortable but negative place, you're going to have this disintegration of the life that you once knew, of the relationship that you allowed to continue, but it's going to be overall generally positive for you due to the energy that you are able to return back to yourself. And I love the idea of looking at our emotions as building blocks, because something else that I read in actually The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, which I talked about in last week's episode, I believe, is how emotions are not things to strive towards. We shouldn't strive to be happy, strive to feel free of sadness, feel free of anger, strive through emotions. We shouldn't strive to achieve one or leave one behind, but rather they're signals. They're signals to our internal planet, and they're signals of our external planet. How you feel can tell you, okay, this is not a great place for me because this is the emotions that it brings out of me. This is not a great place for me to be in this relationship because these are the emotions that it brings out of me. The same thing is true when it comes to emotional complexity. The more you are able to lean into that positive disintegration, quote unquote, crash out, or whether it be your crying and, just breakdown, right? Emotional breakdown. The more you are able to lean into that, the more emotionally complex, the more emotionally resilient you become. And that is inherently a positive thing, at least in my eyes. So I want to leave you with a little bit of science from the Harvard Health publication. And one of their major points include that suppressing tears and repressing your emotions, it's going to have negative effects, which can actually include a weaker immune system, cardiovascular diseases, and mental health consequences such as anxiety and depression. But that there are so many positive benefits to crying, positive benefits to breakdowns and this positive disintegration, right? That includes stress release, toxin release, mood enhancement because of that oxytocin release, as well as the endorphins that get released when you cry. But beyond that, there's also some nervous system regulation. Since crying activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which if you think about it as parasympathetic and sympathetic, sympathetic is S as in stress, parasympathetic P as in peace, it's a positive thing for crying to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. That's going to help your body rest and recover from the emotional distress. And beyond that, it's also going to lower your blood pressure and give you that sense of calm. It's also going to be good for your processing and healing, of course. The sooner you're able to confront that thought pattern, that emotion, whatever is causing you to cry, whatever circumstance that you are in that needs to change, that is going to expedite the process of its resolution. The longer that you suppress, the worse you become within your own body, the more the sympathetic nervous system is activated, and the more delayed that confrontation is. So, better to cry, better to crash out, better to have that positive disintegration sooner rather than later so that we can all move on, stay calm. Oh, wait. What was that? That was like a trend, right? In like 2011? Stay calm and carry on. That's what it was, right? With that like British picture thing. Whoa, what a memory. But I digress. We should cry more, is basically what I'm trying to say here. And it took my driver's test to really, really remember that, right? I really, really felt it. I really sobbed, and it is a little embarrassing. He was like, it's not the end of the world, but listen, it's the end of the world for me right now emotionally. I'm just going to get through this. I'm going to feel it right now. And then I was literally absolutely fine the next day because I had confronted all of my emotions, all of the self-doubt, all of the anger, all of the disappointment with myself, with the instructor, with my circumstances, all the money lost. I cried it all out. I felt every single piece of it. I was devastated. But after that, I'm good. I'm ready to go. And then we can try again. But just give me a second. Well, they have to give me a second because you can't take it for another 2 weeks. But I digress, you guys. Hold out hope. Cross your pinkies and toes. I will be driving soon. I promise I'm a good driver. I took a lesson in the dark, and the teacher was like, wow, like, you're actually really good. I parallel parked twice in the dark. No adjustments. And I parallel parked perfectly on my test. You guys, you can imagine my disappointment. After passing after doing the parallel park, I was like, that's supposed to be the hardest part. Anyway, I digress. Let's not get into the specifics. It's okay. I've come to peace with it now. I truly have. But I invite you to crash out this week. I'm kidding. I want us all to be happy, but I think that's not the end all be all. We need to cry. It's part of it. It's part of it. It's part of it. We just have to do it. So lean into it, feel it. Watch Dead Poet Society if you have to. Get it out. Or Avatar, which I was watching last night, always makes me cry. But I digress. I think that's all I have for you guys this week. Thank you so much for listening. Comment down, crash out if you listened to the very end of the video. And I'm looking forward to seeing any pictures, any slices of Kalopsia of beauty that you guys send in to the Instagram. So it's at kalopsiapod, KALOPSIAPOD on Instagram and TikTok. And it's at Sydney Jotita, SYDNEYDJOTITA on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Once again, thank you so much. I will see you next Sunday.